All right, well, let's get started. Hopefully, a few others will still trickle in. I don't see Andy Tillman yet, but we can kind of, Angie, since you're the vice chair, if you don't mind, I'll kind of defer to you once we get kicked off here. I'll just start. My name is James Hanig. I'm the pedestrian bicycle coordinator at the Department of Public Works, and I am the staffer for the meeting. I guess let's just start off with introductions here. If you don't mind, I think I'll manage this and I'll just go through the list. And if you can say your name and if you're representing an organization or if you're a resident or whatever else quickly that you would like to mention, and then we can get going on the agenda. So first up on my list is Mike Amsden.
Good morning, everyone. Mike Amsden, Multimodal Transportation Manager for the Department of Public Works.
Thank you, Mike. Then we have Angela Vicchio. Looks like Angela might not be. And I'll say I muted everyone at first, so I guess the default will be hopefully everyone will be muted unless you would like to say something, and then either raise your hand or just unmute, and we can kind of manage it. But I know Angela is with the Wisconsin DNR, so hopefully she's listening in. Next, we have Brian Peters.
Hi, good morning. I'm Brian Peters and I'm from Independence First. I do advocacy throughout the community in terms of accessibility. I do not live in the city of Milwaukee. However, I do cover a 4-county region, which includes Milwaukee County.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we have Terry Barant.
Yeah, hi there, everyone. I'm just a resident downtown who's very interested in pedestrian issues, and I've been trying to launch a little organization called Milwaukee Snow Angels of people adopting crosswalks to shovel. I just do that myself. So if you're fortunate enough to live immediately in my neighborhood around Cass and Kilbourne, you probably have some cleaner crosswalks and parking spots than maybe a lot of other people do. So that's just been an interest of mine for some time. I've been a long time cyclist and pedestrian. So good to be here today. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. Next, we have Caressa Givens.
Hello, everyone. My name is Caressa Givens, and I am a resident serving on the task force. But I am also the program manager for Milwaukee Safe and Healthy Streets by way of the Wisconsin Bike Federation.
Thank you, Caressa. Next, we have David Loker.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. David Loker. I'm a transportation manager with Milwaukee County Transit. And anything that enhances the pedestrian experience also enhances the experience at our bus stops. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, David. Then we have Dorothy K. Dean.
Got it. All right. Yeah, I'm the director of a civil rights organization called Disability Justice. We do public policy statewide.
Awesome. Glad you could join us. Thank you. Next, we have Jake Newborn.
Oh, sorry, you caught me off guard. Hi. Jake Newborn, Assistant Director, Wisconsin Bike Fed. Just gonna try and listen a little today, get some updates, see what's going on. So thanks.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for joining us. I'll just mention Jill K. Keenan-Cray, I know is an interpreter for Brian Peters. And then after that, we have Kirsten Finn.
I'm Kirsten Finn, and I'm the Executive Director at the Wisconsin Bike Fed. And I have a 10 o'clock, but I'm glad to be here for an hour.
Thank you, Kirsten. Sorry, I mispronounced. And then Kevin Kushel.
Hi, my name is Kevin Kushel. I am an associate planner for the Department of City Development.
Thank you, Kevin. Sorry, my list went away here for a second. Then we have Meredith Genrich Mertiz. I'm sorry.
Right, okay, there you go. I am Meredith Genrich Mertis, although I love your pronunciation. I might just start using that one.
So sorry.
And I am a cyclist, and I'm going to call myself a super pedestrian because I just got a rescue dog who is not potty trained. So I walked like 9 times yesterday. So super pedestrian, that's what you can call me. And I'm just here to listen and catch up. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, and sorry about that. Then we have Marissa Meyer.
Hi, I'm Marissa Meyer. I'm a transportation planner for the City of Milwaukee Department of Public Works.
Thank you, Marissa. And then Mitchell Henke. Looks like Mitchell isn't able to speak. I know he is been a regular attendee and a recent appointee to the task force and just has yet to be confirmed. Next, we have Paul George.
Hi, I'm Paul George, and I'm a student at UWM. I'm an urban planning student. I'm here to attend the meeting. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad you could join us. Becky Rabatten.
Good morning. My name is Becky Rabatten. I'm the ADA coordinator for the City of Milwaukee.
Thank you, Becky. Next, Kate Reardon.
Good morning, Kate Reardon, transportation planner with City of Milwaukee DPW Multimodal Unit.
Thank you, Kate. Shannon M. Rickert.
Hi, I'm also the other interpreter teaming with Jill for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I couldn't remember. Angie Tornes.
Caught me with my mouth full. Hi, yep, I'm Angie Tornes. I'm with the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program half-time, covering the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Illinois in parts, and also hydropower relicensing coordinator for the entire Midwest region of the Park Service. That's 13 states. I'm here in Milwaukee. Thanks.
And the vice chair of the task force. Thank you.
That too, yes.
Jessica Weinberg.
Hi, I'm Jessica Weinberg, the Trails Coordinator for Milwaukee County Parks, and it's just wonderful to see such a big group and so many new faces or little icons, as it may be.
Thank you, Jessica. This one's going to be fun. Your mom. Well, hopefully your mom is listening. And then next is Zach Sharp.
Hi there, I'm Zach. I'm just a Milwaukee County resident coming to listen to the meeting.
Thank you, Zach. Okay, just making sure here. I know a couple people jumped in while we were here. I think I saw Sarah Brigant. Sarah, if you wouldn't mind just announcing yourself and saying if you're with an organization.
Sure. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yep, Sarah Brigant here. I am a River West resident. That's kind of why I'm joining today. I do work at Northwest Side Community Development Corporation, though.
Thank you, Sarah. And I do see your mom has raised their hand. Feel free to unmute. All right. Well, I might have to check the chat after a little bit here, just multitasking a little. Okay. Just one line. Did I miss anyone or people joining on the phone? If you'd like to just jump in and announce yourself, please.
My name's Angela Vecchio. I'm the trail manager for Hank Aaron State Trail and the Lakeshore State Park manager. I was having some major audio issues where I could not understand anything that was being said earlier. So now that I'm reconnected, I can hear everybody.
Yay, thanks for joining us, Angela. Anyone
Good
else?
morning. Tavius Jones, concerned citizen here in the city.
Good to see you, Montavious. Thanks for joining.
Good seeing you too, James.
Anyone else or anyone joining us on the phone here? All right. Well, if at any point someone does want to, if they jump on or jump off or fixed any audio issues, feel free to just raise your hand and we'll get you introduced. I know that takes a while, but I think it's always important to know who's joining us and who's participating. So it's definitely we do have an agenda that the task force put together, and we would like to follow that. But we do want to make sure that this is always a community platform for people to hear more about what's going on and share their own experiences out in the city. So I think with that we can. I don't know if I'm seeing Andy Tillman, the chair, yet. And if you're here, please do jump in. Otherwise, I will toss it over to Angie. And in the meantime, I'm going to paste the current agenda into the chat so that at least people can kind of follow along if you don't have it in front of you. And then Angie, I know there were possibly some revisions, so we'll get that taken care of as well.
Right. Thank you. James, and I'm going to do the same thing with pasting it into the chat, my revision, so everyone can see it. But while I'm doing that, I just want to say it's really great, like Jessica said, to see everyone here. It's been a long time for the people I'm used to seeing and enjoy seeing, but it's also great to see so many other people. And, finally, all this stuff is cool. We've known it for a long time, but transportation, bicycling and walking issues, advocacy, and promoting it within your city is a great thing. So thanks for everybody's interest. And I'm going to send this chat right there. So if you can see that, I could also share my screen. I don't know what's the best. So James, if you have any opinion about that. Oh, here comes Andy. I'm letting him in. And so what I would like to propose is make a motion is to change the agenda a little bit. And that is to, first off, discuss accomplishments since we last met. And what is that? Has that been a half a year, James? Or longer? Yeah, okay. And then some updates, and I asked specifically about the round 2, active streets round 2, and an update on that. Are we going to do it again? Makes sense to do it again. And what's going on, all the excitement in the 30th Street corridor, developments there. So that would be second. And then also, today's the day we're supposed to elect officers, and then set goals for 2021, and then set a regular meeting schedule. So that's what I'm proposing. Does anyone have any issues they would like to, or discussion about that lineup? If so, raise your hand, please, and James will let you in or answer it.
Angie, one thing I would just bring up is whether you want to, I think you have quorum now with Andy joined, if you'd like to also include approving the June 2020 minutes.
Sure, yeah. Hi, Andy. Glad you're here. So I am making a motion to approve the June 2020 minutes. All in favor. I don't know if we have a voting poll capability on Teams. I think that there is, maybe, I'm not sure.
Can we
But
just
if
do
you,
the raise your hand and James can count them up?
sure, that's a good idea. If you can see everyone, James, can you see everyone?
Yeah, I'll be able to see who raises their hands on the list. So thank you. Yeah, I didn't think
Oh,
of this.
on the list. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
We could also certainly just do a verbal one. I think that would still work as well.
I think
You know, if
easier-
essentially all in favor say aye and people have unmuted. If I hear enough kind of ayes, then I think it would work.
Okay, so we're all going to just say aye together if you approve, if we approve.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Well, now that Andy's here, Andy, you want to introduce yourself to everybody? And I've proposed changing up the agenda a little bit, and maybe you'll see it there in the chat. But that's where we're at, just changing the order of things a little.
Sure, no problem. Good morning, I'm Andy Tillman. I'm a citizen member and chair of the task force. Sorry I'm late. I had some technical difficulties on this end, so happy to be here now. So yeah, changing the agenda slightly, no problem. So we can go with whatever you had mentioned earlier that I missed. I'll just catch up, no problem.
Okay, so what we were going to talk about are the accomplishments from 2020.
Angie, if I could interrupt really quickly here, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I do see Andrew from Bubbler Bikes has his hand raised. Andrew, did you have something you wanted to ask or say?
Oh no, sorry, I accidentally hit that. Sorry.
No, no worries. Okay. Go on. Thank you.
Seriously, this it would be great to have just a list of representatives here. It's one of the most interesting, engaged, representative meetings I think we've had ever, possibly. So anyway, so the 2020 accomplishments for our task force. I do wonder if there's any update on the research that one of the people were doing from the city on the, the disposition of the task force itself. That was one item that we were looking at to see if we should morph into something different, like a committee or an advisory committee. And I don't know if there's any update on that, but I think that is pretty much the only thing that comes to mind for our task force that's a high priority before moving on to updates from the city. Does anybody have any feedback on that?
I guess what I could share is just, especially since we do have a lot of new people joining, just kind of a very brief background on what kind of is what the question is or what the opportunity is, and then just like a brief update. So going way back, probably 2-3 years at this point, there was a discussion about changing the bylaws for the task force. And we learned at that point that the bylaws that had been developed over the course of the existence of the task force didn't actually constitute as enabling legislation. The actual legislation that Common Council moved forward relating to the task force was literally to implement the 1993 bike plan, and then was later updated to include pedestrian matters as well, but it never really updated like its actual bylaws or what it has the sort of authority to do. So a subcommittee was created to kind of dig into developing a more substantial enabling legislation and just like what the sort of vision and purpose of the task force would like to be going forward. And that's evolved into multiple other sort of, or kind of cross paths with a lot of other city efforts, including the Complete Streets policy and the Complete Streets Committee that was created as part of that policy. And I know Caressa wanted to provide an update on Milwaukee Safe and Healthy Streets at some point. I don't know if now I have to double check the new agenda, but we can certainly make sure that that's brought in just a minute. But so there's sort of the enabling legislation of the task force and updating that to kind of reflect its current and kind of future interests and as an advisory body for the city. And then there's also, over the past year, there have been a number of members who have left or openings that have essentially been created at this point, that there are some vacancies that we're looking to fill. So in many ways, those two conversations are kind of tied, because it's an opportunity to see even what individuals or representation is most fitting for kind of the task force going forward. And I guess with that, the subcommittee has not met since early last year, early 2020. So there hasn't been a lot of development since then. There have been a few conversations with the chair, with Andy, and with the Legislative Reference Bureau at the city. But I don't think anything really that would constitute an update at this point. So I think it's I think it would be great for the subcommittee to want to reconvene so that we could kind of pick up the conversation. So Angie and Andy, I would defer to you on whether you feel this is the time to get the Milwaukee Safe and Healthy Streets update, or if you wanted to have that later.
Well, in my view, and I thought that would be part of the updates. I just gave some examples there for number 2. Andy, is that okay with you?
Yep, totally fine with me.
So thanks for that summary, James. It's excellent. And maybe this, what you mentioned as a need to reconvene the subcommittee, could actually be one of the goals for 2021. Okay. So with that, Andy, I'm going to hand it over to you. Do you see the agenda for number 2? Okay. It's all yours.
So are we jumping right into the elections then?
Oh no! Look in your chat. The revised number 2 is just updates on some issues that I brought up. And James already teed it off with Safe and Healthy Streets with Caressa, waiting at the top of the line there. But some other items I suggested was the whether or not the active streets and whatever it is that you got going for parklets or little street things that are people can eat at restaurants. That's another thing.
Yes, I propose. Well, I mean, I guess when the world shut down, I proposed that to create more space, that we have more parklets around the streets, and if any restaurants applied for a space like Colectivo or the Nomad had already, that could be fast tracks to give people more space to get out. And I think it was considered, and along with a bunch of other considerations, by BW. So I'm not sure it didn't form exactly the way I wanted, I guess, or people didn't get it, or anyway, there was a combination of other things happening all at the same time. So I don't know if that we're going to count that as a accomplishment. It was more of a suggestion at the time. It would have been cool if all the restaurants had parklets at them, but you know, that's about all I got, other than just trying to reconvene and get things set up. We kind of just went into sleep mode in middle of summer, so.
Okay. And then the last thing I asked for an update was on, besides the Safe and Healthy Streets and the active streets, whether that or not that was going to go through round 2, was, just the 30th Street corridor. Are you able to see the revised agenda that I put in the chat, Andy?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're at. And if James was able to bring anybody in from DPW with super short notice on those updates, that would be phenomenal. But I think we might as well let Caressa go first, unless people with DPW have to move on.
I don't wanna prolong Caressa providing an update, but I think that will be a pretty interesting update and should probably have a good amount of time. Just a lot of the efforts that Milwaukee Safe and Healthy Streets is doing. I think maybe just tossing it over to Kate Reardon and Mike Amson if he's wants to weigh in as well on the two items that you mentioned, Angie, the Milwaukee Active Streets program, and then the 30th Street corridor, maybe just for a quick update. Kate, if you wouldn't mind. Oh, Kate says she's having a few issues right now, so she'll come back. Okay, well, let's, Caressa, if everything's working for you, if you wouldn't mind providing that update on Safe and Healthy Streets, probably would be great to probably just provide an update on, what the highlights since June 2020, but then especially as it relates to, the conversations around the task force and other committees would be awesome.
Sure. Well, I see that Kate is here. Kate, I don't know if you can hear me and communicate back. You're working so diligently on Active Streets, but maybe what I'll just say is that to everyone, as a reminder, in 2020, the Wisconsin Bike Fed and many others advocated not only to the city and the county here in Milwaukee, but also to the DOT to support some kind of program to alleviate the trail systems and get people moving during COVID-19. And thankfully, the city and the county partnered well together for the pilot of Active Streets, and some of you may have been able to help volunteer or utilize those active streets, whether they were closed off parkways or whether they were partially closed local streets. And I think that the Bike Fed had a good time along with Safe and Healthy Streets working with some of the resident groups during that pilot to actually activate the active streets. So I'm pleased that we're pressing forward in 2021 with a more robust active streets program. So I can pass it on over to Kate to talk a little bit more about her plans with the DPW. Oh, Kate, I can't hear you. Or we can't hear you. At least I can't, though.
While Kate is getting ready.
And Mike.
Can you hear me? Okay, so while Kate is hopefully fixing her technical difficulties, let me just address one thing that Andy mentioned regarding active streets for businesses, which is a separate item than what Kate will hopefully talk about here shortly. So the Active Streets for Businesses program, which I know the task force, I believe, submitted a letter of support or recommendation, did actually take off in 2020, where restaurants and I believe other retailers were able to utilize public space in a more creative way to expand their business presence and serve outside. I don't have the exact number. That was run through a separate section of DPW, but it was relatively successful. And DPW, again, not us, but DPW is looking for ways to expand the program going forward. So if there's interest in talking about active streets for businesses at any future meeting, kind of the restaurant, dining, retail scene, definitely let us know and we can get the right people on the call.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm having a lot of issues with Teams today. Anytime I click on the chat, the view changes and I can't access any controls like unmuting. So I keep leaving and coming back. So I guess I should just not look at the chat. As Caressa and Mike said, I've been working on active streets for 2021, and I like to call it Active Streets for Streets, since Active Streets for Business kind of took the name that James came up with, which I think was a really great name for our program, where, as Caressa said, we partnered with Milwaukee County Parks last year as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic in order to create more space for people to bike, walk, be physically active at a safe physical distance from one another. So on the city side, if you weren't familiar with what we did last year, we had kind of 4 areas. There are multiple streets in each of those areas throughout the city. So on the north side, we had Custer Avenue, and then in Harambe and River West, we had Wright Street and Fratney Street. On the west side, we had Galena Street with a couple other smaller sections of streets connected to that. And then on the south side, we had Washington Avenue or Washington Street, sorry. We used barricades to try to limit traffic, through traffic, barricades and signage. And I think we had good response from the public on the program. We put out a survey that had about 1,000 responses, both through an online link that we distributed, and then we also sent letters to all the addresses within 2 blocks of the city's active streets. So overall, very positive response. We know that barricades and signage aren't perfect in reducing through traffic, but people did really think that it sent a signal to people driving that this is a street where you should expect to see more people out in the street being active. So this year, we will be starting phase 1 of Active Streets and a potential 3-phase project. So in 10 days, on February 15th, an RFP will be released to community organizations. Actually, it's open to basically anyone who we are able to invoice, so it could, or who is able to invoice us. So it could be a neighborhood group to propose active streets locations, and then we will hire them to do community outreach and programming on the active streets. So as Caressa mentioned, there are some community groups that really took to the active streets, and they were supported by the Safe and Healthy Streets grant to do some of that. So 16th Street Community Health Centers did a weekly walk on the Washington Street active street. So activities like that, we will be funding through this program. So we will be selecting up to 3 locations or 3 organizations who will receive this grant to do active streets. We'll be doing barricades and signage again, but then we also will be purchasing some more wave delineators, which we were lent last year by Saris. We can use these to create temporary curb extensions and maybe some other configurations on the active streets to just add a little bit more to the streets. We're also going to partner with an arts organization, Artists Working in Education, to incorporate art into the streets. So organizations get to choose what they want to do, but it could be something like an intersection mural, painted curb extensions, crosswalks, a community flag, other kind of decorative signage. So like I mentioned, sorry, I feel like I'm going on forever about this, but this is phase 1 of a potential phase 3 or 3-phase project. So phase 2 would happen after this first phase, and we'd work with the organization and residents to identify a smaller section of the active street and install semi-permanent traffic calming infrastructure, so like rubber speed humps or other types of semi-permanent, easily installed but also easily removed infrastructure, and we can try out some different configurations. Then the 3rd phase would be probably happen many years after phase 2, where we would actually either seek out grants or allocate some budget to construct permanent infrastructure.
Hey, Kate.
Yes.
So awesome. Thank you for the update. I want to do 2 little housekeeping things here. So one, we have a couple hands raised, so I'll call on these people in just a bit. I'm hoping they're questions for you. And then just because there are some technical difficulties going on, I'm borderline having some myself. I'll also be checking the chat, and I'll bring questions up as they come up during the meeting as well. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning. We are recording this as well, so if anyone feels uncomfortable with that, just know that we're doing that mostly for just taking note purposes. So, all right. So first question I saw was from Becky Rabatin.
Hi, Kate. With Active Streets carrying it on, one of my questions is, are we going to be developing maybe guidelines for that? In the city ordinance for Active Streets, it does address about accessibility within active streets and within the footprint, and reviewing drawings. I'm coming up across the same concerns about accessible seating. And I hate for restaurateurs, especially considering how COVID has affected them financially, to already purchase tables out there, maybe cafe style tables that would not be accessible, and what is actually needed from the accessibility. And I would like to maybe see that in a guideline for active streets. Would that be something that is being considered?
So you're referring to Active Streets for Business, which is different from the program I'm talking about.
Sorry.
I can't answer that.
No, I don't have those answers. Becky, we'll have to chat. That's run through kind of the coordination manager, so separate from the folks here today. We don't have much detail at all on Active Streets for Businesses. We apologize. Again, if there's a desire to talk in more detail about it at the next meeting, absolutely. We'll just need to get the right people on the call.
Okay, thank you.
We knew this would be an issue when the name was added on to, so no apologies, or no apologies.
It's my job. What can I say?
No, and you're bringing up great points. So no, we're not trying to discredit or anything. So, all right, next we had Angie.
Yeah, Kate, this is wonderful news. And I'm just curious, I know that some people are very interested in participating in doing work in their neighborhoods and working with AWE. So who would you suggest that people contact if they want to initiate something?
So if they want to apply for Active Streets, the proposal application will be open on February 15th, and it will be, we'll put out a press release, so I'm sure you'll all get that information that way, but it will also be on the project website, which is milwaukee.gov/ActiveStreets2021.
Okay, great. And when is the deadline for that?
It is March 12th.
So just a little under a month. Okay, yep. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so a couple options here. So I know that Kate, everything's working for you right now. So now could be a good opportunity, unless you had more you wanted to share on Active Streets 2021, but otherwise an update on like the 30th Street corridor would probably be great. But I know that we're also kind of in the middle of Safe and Healthy Streets updates. So just however you two kind of want to manage that.
I'll go ahead with the 30th Street. And there are also a couple other people on the call who are involved in that. So I would love it if they want to jump in, Jessica, Sarah, anyone else I may have missed. They were very involved in the developing of the 30th Street corridor preliminary trail feasibility study. So there may be some things I miss and or other things that I forget to highlight. So there was a working group that was put together led by Rails to Trails Conservancy to look at the 30th Street rail corridor and determine if a rail with trail would be feasible on this corridor. So we had a really diverse working group made up of agency partners like the city. We had myself and then some folks from DCD represented, Jessica from County Parks, a couple folks from DNR and WISDOT were also on it. But then the really great thing is that we had a lot of community partners. So Northwest Side CDC, 30th Street Industrial Corridor Corp, and a couple other partners who have really taken on this feasibility study, and they're really embracing it and running with it. So the preliminary feasibility study looked at the corridor to see if again a trail along the corridor would be possible. And basically the conclusion is, yes, it would be possible. There are some pinch points where the trail maybe would need to go on street for a little while, for a couple blocks, or some other details would need to be worked out. But overall, it does seem feasible, and it's really great because building this trail will really increase trail access for Milwaukee residents, especially residents, people of color, people who are lower income, people who just don't have access to trails right now. So building this trail would be really powerful and important for the city. So the next steps for this trail study is the development of a equitable development plan. So that's really being taken on by 30th Street Industrial Corridor Corporation, led by Cheryl Blue. Northwest Side CDC is also very involved in it, and of course Rails to Trails Conservancy will continue to be involved. So the plan is to really bring this to the community, ask them if this is what they really want and what do they want out of this potential trail. So that's kind of a high-level overview of it. I don't know if Sarah or Jessica, you want to hop in and say anything else?
Hi, this is Jessica. I guess I'll just add that Sarah and I are kind of working together on pursuing some other grant opportunities and more planning efforts. So the county was awarded a grant to do a Northwest Side Trail connectivity study as a way to keep advancing this concept and see, not just look at the 30th Street corridor, but where should it connect? How can it connect? What should the long range plan be beyond this really important corridor? And then I don't know, Sarah, if you want to talk about the grant you're doing, but there's a replay grant out there through ESPN, and it's to do community involvement around developing public land into more active recreation use. And so we're thinking about partnering some of that enhanced outreach with the planning grant for the Northwest Side. And so hopefully that will come through. And that project, the planning project, both those projects might have some initial steps that take place later in the year in 2021, but will be full steam in 2022.
Yeah, I guess I can just say really quickly, and thank you, Kate and Jessica, for that. You really, hit everything on the head with that. But, just to say, Northwest Side CDC, we're really excited about the study coming out and some of the efforts that are going to be happening next with the equitable development plan. As Jessica mentioned, we are really looking at tying this, 30th Street concept together with other planning efforts, with other projects. DCD actually just released last year the Connecting the Corridor plan, which highlights different types of trail opportunities and safe street opportunities, in addition to stormwater and public space and park projects. So we're really trying to look at all of these things from a holistic perspective and really be community minded and engaging neighbors and stakeholders in that approach. And definitely looking at funding sources. It's no secret that some of these improvements will be fairly costly. And so as Jessica mentioned, we've got our eye on at least one small grant to help with some of the engagement work. We'll definitely be clued into some of the active streets work as far as that community engagement side, trying to enhance that with things like public art and, resident engagement and programming. So we're just excited to be a part of all this. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity to say a few words about that.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. There are a couple items in the chat here I thought I'd just bring up. So Becky said she forgot to mention about art within the active streets, mindfulness as to protruding objects within the accessible pathways. Becky, was it just kind of a reminder, or did you have a question? Just let us know.
Just that needs to be considered, as far as placement of art, how it projects out, that if you have a white cane user, that could be a problem. So we need to be mindful of that as far as placement of art. It depends on this installation itself, how it's structured. And then would it include to protect against protruding objects, that we would have fencing around, for protection for those individuals that might be white cane users.
Good point. Good point. All right, and then we have from Brian Peters, is there sufficient budget to maintain existing trails? From an accessibility perspective, I'd rather funds be allocated to ensure existing trails do not degrade to a point of not being able to be used by people with mobility disabilities, for example, walkers, wheelchairs, etc. Great question, Brian. And he said, let's face it, not just cane users regarding protruding items, people on phones too. Yes, for the active streets. In terms of like your question for, is there a sufficient budget? I would say no. But obviously, the city and the county are committed to maintaining trails. There's separate budgets, separate systems even. So they're maintained to different levels. I would say the county does a better job. Good job, Jessica. But I would say, I think we're committed in the long term to maintaining these trails as well. That's part of the agreement when we receive the capital funding as well. So I'll just also kind of say, like, while we're in the multimodal unit at DPW, kind of tangentially involved with, a lot of much more in leading trail planning and development. When it comes to maintaining, that's a different part of DPW that's handled by the DPW operations division. So if the task force would ever want to talk about this in more detail, we can certainly bring the right people to the table in terms of what those maintenance budgets are, what the frequency is, what some of the challenges and opportunities are to be doing a better job. So. And Sarah just shared some more information on the Connecting the Corridor plan that she and the Department of State Development worked on and approved last November. Okay, one more question here from Angie. Who would be the ultimate owner of the trail, and is there an MOU for maintenance? Kate, Jessica, I don't know if you'd want to tackle that.
I would just say, I just typed it, but that is the $1 million question, and that's part of why we need some of these processes for different government agencies to kind of figure out what could work. Everyone has really strained budgets, so nothing is about to be built, nothing is set. I don't want to have people be too excited. We have a lot of things to figure out, and if we can afford to build it and who can afford to maintain it, and those are really tough questions. And I agree with Brian, we need to make sure that we're not letting something else fail more because we've added new, but we also want to address equity concerns where some of our facilities are only in certain kinds of neighborhoods and not in other neighborhoods. So there's a lot of questions still to be answered and some really difficult choices, but hopefully we can find some funding and partnerships to make it happen in the long run.
Yep, great points. I'll also just say, like, as Jessica just mentioned, like, it is not nothing is being built immediately, but it certainly could use a lot of support from community members and from task forces and committees like the Bike Ped Task Force. So, if this is something you want to see become a reality, I think this verbal and written support for it is very needed and appreciated. I see a hand raised here. Let me just switch over. Sorry. Kevin has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. So that, James, what you were just mentioning was what I was actually thinking about, like, in what way could the Bike Ped Task Force support these initiatives? And I realize, like, we don't have purse strings, but what, like, beyond just writing letters of support, is there something else that we could be doing that could make this, think about the maintenance and then think about, like, how this could actually become a reality, right? Because I think we all support this. How can we make this, how can our support be useful?
Yeah, I'd put that to the task force members to discuss first. And, I think we as city assistants and liaisons would be happy to kind of share what we think. But I think the task force should be the driver of that discussion. what's the task force's, what are the task force expectations for the 30th Street corridor and a trail?
Can
Chris,
I,
did I see your hand raised?
can I interject? Just open up and speak? Yeah?
Go for it.
Okay.
Go for
okay.
it.
Well, I think we're probably all in line with what Kevin was saying, that we absolutely want to support it, and there's obviously a need. And I guess if there's a pressing, time-sensitive need that we need to do within the time period between now and the next meeting, we could address that during this meeting. Otherwise, it might be another discussion for later, because we have to do other things on the agenda. And it could be a goal for 2021. I just don't know what the time frame is for commenting in the very near term or short term or what. Thank you.
Carissa, you had your hand raised before. Did you have something?
I can speak to that in line with Angie's recommendations. It's fine.
Cool. Well, I'll also say that there is a policy and project subcommittee of the task force that seems like a very likely spot to have a more in-depth conversation as well. Although, you know, knowing that there are quite a few vacancies on the task force overall, it's probably already would be a small group discussion for a future task force meeting. I think it's just a matter of whether you want to wait until the next meeting once that schedule's set. So really good, though. I think this will definitely be a good discussion. We can certainly see if there are other more immediate opportunities to make sure that the task force has an opportunity to weigh in.
I would say that if there is anything that comes up that's pressing, in the interim, to definitely reach out to us, Andy and I and James, and we can do it, initiate something anytime.
Well, cool. If there isn't anything else on this agenda item, I would pitch it back to Andy and Angie to go to the next one. Well, thank you for all the presentations, everyone, and the discussion. I think this is really good. I'm just calling up the image here of the new agenda. 3 was elect officers, if that's where you would like to move next.
Works for me.
All right. All right. Well, I did set up a Mentimeter poll ahead of the meeting, so I will call that up and make changes to it. But I'll put it out to the chair to introduce the item.
Oh, so I was just looking for it myself. So yeah, are we gonna add Mitch? Is he available for officer positions? Although he's not yet confirmed, but he should be soon. He should have been already.
I don't want to exclude anyone, but the fact that he's not technically an appointed member yet might be a little bit of a
that would be weird, I guess.
Complication. You know, you could always. This is kind of a weird thing to say, but you could always vote today, or you could decide to move it to a future meeting if you don't want to do it today. And if we want to make sure that he's appointed by the next meeting, we could do that.
Well, regardless of what we decide, I think he needs to be appointed by the next meeting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we'll reach out to the mayor's office again and get this all set up.
Okay.
So is he a likely and a good candidate that we want to throw right into one of the elected positions, well, right from the get-go?
I guess I have to ask him, but you know, he should be at least in the conversation, I think.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is he interested in holding a position? I mean, if he's not interested, then this is a moot point.
Yeah, right. Mitch?
Probably not at this point. I'd just be happy to serve on the committee at all, or the task force at all.
All right. So never mind. We'll just get you appointed by the next meeting then. Done. All right. I need the. Is the link coming in the chat then for the?
Okay, so what I would recommend is someone nominates either themselves or someone else, and then that should be seconded. And then once that's seconded, you can motion to actually vote on it. And that's when I'll edit the poll with those people, and it should update on your devices.
Just a technical question. I usually, when I place my camera in front of a QR code, it automatically pops up what it should be doing. Mine's not doing that. Is there something I need to know?
Part of it is I haven't opened the poll yet because we don't have all the nominees.
Okay. I see. So nominees, yes. Don't be shy.
I would like to nominate Caressa Givens for chair.
Okay.
Anyone
Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, we've got Caressa. Anyone else?
Wait, I have a question. Am I supposed to be on Mentimeter right now?
Not yet.
No.
I just want to make sure we get
I'm so
all.
sorry.
No, it's all good. This is like uncharted territory, right?
Okay.
Once all the nominees, then I'll edit it really quickly, and it will update for you, and you'll be able to vote on it.
And people can nominate themselves, correct?
They can.
Yes.
So just because you haven't been thinking about it in the past doesn't mean you can't just say, hey, I want to do that too.
Okay, I nominate myself.
She wants to get a double vaccine, whatever the equivalent is.
Sure.
Already nominated, so you're good. And we're also opening it up for vice chair as well, right? Or are we just going to do chair right now?
Both.
Yeah, you might as well do both. It'll make it a little easier.
Yeah.
I nominate Kevin Kushel for vice chair.
Whoa.
Second.
Whoa.
All right. Any other nominees for any of the others?
What's the others?
Oh, no, that's it. I just like chair and vice chair
no.
for either. Well, I think we know how this is going to go, but I'll do it just so we're formal. It'll be good practice anyway. So
Yeah.
just give me 1 minute here.
And are these secret votes like Chris has been asking for a while now?
You know, I thought about that. I don't think no one will see on the screen who voted for whom. So
Okay. But you'll know. So
I'll know, and
secret's
I'll
the
never
thing.
tell a soul.
Okay. There you go, Carissa. You got it. Congratulations. I mean, your secret vote anyway. I don't know about the chair yet. We'll see.
All right, 1 second here.
It's not open yet, right? You have
Nope.
to open it.
Almost. Oh, geez. All right. And then I'm just going to share my screen so we can all, I'm not doing anything shady here.
Oh, it's not a secret anymore.
All right. So the poll should be open.
Hold on. Where is it? Oh, I got to go back to my email.
There's one and it's a big rectangle.
Andy, can you drop the link in the chat?
Well, I do want to keep it just to the members, so.
Okay, I'm gonna go, I guess, back to my email.
Yep, be right back.
Does this stay open and continue to grow as people submit their votes?
Yep. You should see the numbers.
And are you seeing who is submitting votes, James, or not?
Behind, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm not finding my. I can't find it.
Are you sure we can't put the link in the chat?
We can, but I won't be able to exactly track who's voting then. So.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
Well, this is a great slate.
I think you're a little biased.
So I did resend the link this morning, so hopefully there's something in people's inboxes like pretty close to the top.
Do you need to keep refreshing it or something? Is that what the technology is? We're all just so curious about it.
Man.
It worked for one person.
Worked for me.
All right, here we go.
2, another person's in. All right.
There should be 4 unless somebody's abstaining. Oh, someone vote for Kevin. Come on.
Well, I cannot find it in my email for some reason.
All right. Well, if people are comfortable.
I can forward my email to you, James, if you want. I mean, Andrew.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll do it right now. But we can vote for the other one maybe, or no, we can't. But I'm just going to send it to Andy. Anybody else need it? I can send it.
There we go.
I saw it before the meeting, so I don't know. Oh, wait. Found it. Oh.
All right.
All right. Oh.
There should be a second page for vice chair.
Found it. I'm in.
All right. Well, I'll assume the nominees did not vote from themselves. So we have 3 votes for each, 1 nominee. So the chair is now Caressa Givens and vice chair is Kevin Kuschel. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yay! Congratulations. I'm so excited for you guys.
Thank you.
Take the reins.
All right.
Take the reins now? Or does that happen or do we have to wait?
Nope. Effective immediately.
Here.
Okay. Wait, here, Carissa, I'm going to give you and Kevin, here, I'm handing the reins. Take them.
Thanks for humoring the technical difficulties there, everyone. Okay. So just going back to the agenda, I think we were 2021 goals. Let me just, set goals for 2021. So I guess I would hand that over to Caressa.
Okay. Well, we, prior to us, somebody have their microphone on. Maybe they could turn it off.
I'll mute everyone.
Turn your phone on silent, please.
Carissa, 1 sec. I'm going to mute everyone and then unmute you.
I'm already on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, we had really had a full preliminary discussion on how we would set our goals for 2021. However, I think that, because this session is recorded, I think we could, how much time do we have, James, to discuss that?
You technically have 50 minutes for the rest of the meeting. And,
Okay.
they can go long, but I would encourage staying on time.
Okay, well, the horse is out of the barn then, 50 minutes, wow. Well, I guess I will take some suggestions, but the one thing before I say that, I just want to thank everyone for voting for myself and Kevin, and thanks to Andy and Angie and all the other folks who have served, including Claude, he's not here, on the Bike Pedestrian Task Force. So I appreciate the work that you do, and I hope that I can do this position justice. I'm going to turn my camera on here. So I do know, I do want to put this out there that this group has been very diligent about addressing snow and ice removal. And I know, I think that that's a topic on the agenda, but I just wanted to bring that up again, because I know it's something that people are very committed to here. So if anyone just wants to keep that as an item to address in 2021, I'm more than happy to work on that issue.
Yeah, personally, I think we should, particularly after Alderwoman Lewis proposed that new pilot program, we could provide some comments on that. Personally, when I read the statement, I was both encouraged and a little disheartened because it was car-centric. It did not focus on the pedestrian. It focused only on driveways being plowed over. And as a pedestrian, and I would also say that I'm a super pedestrian. I walk my dog close to 10 miles every day. I noticed that the crosswalks were incredibly challenging to go around or over. I would literally have to jump over many of the snow piles. So I think as a pedestrian and as a driver, it does become a challenge once plows plow us in. And so I would definitely think that we should continue talking about that and provide comments to make it a little bit more inclusive in those refocus the conversations on not just cars, but also on other users of the road.
Okay. I think Montavious had his hand raised. Take it away, Montavious.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Kevin, I had not heard about that. Well, one, congrats to both you and Carissa on your election. I had not heard of the Alderwoman's resolution to do this pilot program. I think then this would be a good time before, starts going through the committees for this committee to, come up with some recommendations maybe, or have her thinking more about not just, car-centric snow issues, but pedestrian-centric issues regarding snow removal. So that can be added to the bill. I feel like she's a very open Alderwoman and would welcome that kind of feedback. So I don't know if it's been introduced already or if it's already started through the committee process, but if it hasn't, I think that would be a great opportunity for you guys to make a recommendation to her.
Does anyone else want to chime in about snow and ice removal processes for raising that issue to attention to more folks outside of this group? Rebecca?
I thought snow removal was included in the agenda that was sent out. I know I had reached out to Claude because I was getting complaints about it, and I felt it was time that we discuss this issue because it's been on the back burner. So I thought that that was going to be addressed, and I know there are several people attending today specifically due to snow and ice removal.
Yeah, sorry about that. So the agenda sent out before the meeting did have that, and then at the beginning of the meeting there was the revised agenda. I think because there's a new chair, a new vice chair, you can certainly kind of re-revise the agenda, and this is still a pretty casual group, so I mean certainly bring these up, and if you want to discuss them, Carissa and Kevin.
Yeah, it might be my issue. I didn't see the snow and ice item listed originally, but it doesn't matter. We can talk about it now.
Well, before we get into that, because I did suggest a snow and ice removal item, and also just in general promoting more winter activities in the community, just get people out and moving. However, I wanted to put this out to many of you. I know there's a lot of people here too who often scratch their heads and wonder what exactly the Bike Pedestrian Task Force does. So I want to acknowledge the fact that I think there is a recognition that the group as a whole needs to be rescoped completely. And I know that people have opinions about that. So, perhaps before we discuss specific items, maybe I could tell you a little bit about what's going on in terms of that rescope, and also garner any feedback from all of you in regards to how we could take that to the next level. Does that sound okay?
That sounds good to me. I would second that if that's a motion.
Okay.
My only caution is that we put a time limit on it, because this is supposed to be a meeting of brainstorming for agenda items or goals for 2021. And we could get stuck in this one, stuck in a rut, an ice rut, the entire rest of the meeting.
Thank you. So at the moment, the grant that I program manage has carved out a little bit of opportunity to work with an outside facilitator to examine the Bike Pedestrian Task Force, along with the Complete Streets Committee, and even Milwaukee Safe and Healthy Streets. For those of you who do not know who Milwaukee Safe and Healthy Streets are, they're a group of mostly volunteer committed members of the community who are huge urbanists, and they're the ones who have Bob Schneider, Willie Caritas, Nicholas Lajoie, and or Lajoie, excuse me, myself and Joyce Tang Boyland, and many other folks, Kate Reardon, Kate Nelson. Anyway, so all those groups kind of function in different spheres, and many of you know them. And I think it's high time that we kind of look at what each group does, what is their function, and if anyone would like to see, for example, this particular group maybe meet at different times or anything like that, please let us know. But the goal is to examine all of those elements, from how our decision-making power, how we onboard members, etc. So right now I'm just opening up to anyone who has any suggestions, particularly on how this group functions, if they have any ideas, and we can move on from that after that. And let me remind you, because this is a 2021 goal, so we want to function better. So if you have any ideas, if you have attended Bike Pedestrian Task Force meetings before in the past, you say, I wish they would do something like this differently, that differently. I wish that maybe they would have more power, etc., in certain avenues. Now is your chance. And also, you can obviously email James, the staff assistant, and let us know too offline if you have some other ideas or goals that you would like the task force to achieve in 2021.
This is Montavious. Can I say something? Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I think one thing the task force could do is partner with the Legislative Research Bureau. I think that's what's called, a reference bureau in City Hall. in order to start crafting some legislation that might be able to find a friendly voice in the Common Council. I know we had a kind of a similar thing when we did the complete streets policy. Maybe more of that, crafting more legislation that we can hope to introduce, so we can implement some of these goals like clearing curb cuts and driveways and other infrastructure improvements.
Becky's hand, yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
So there are several individuals on here specifically due to snow removal concerns, and I've had a pretty lengthy discussion last night with another person in regards to snow removal. And I did mention and invited them to the meeting today. They were unable to attend, but I know that we had a group that it was kind of a item within a committee meeting, or which of course you were part of, Carissa and Claude and James, but maybe we could ask for other individuals that would like to work on an initiative on snow removal.
Obviously snow removal, especially at this time of year, is a big concern for everyone. And the way the procedures that we do them and everything, I definitely agree with you, Becky. I think at this point though, like what Montavious was suggesting would essentially give the Bike Ped Task Force a little bit more power in order to implement these ideas and implement these or voice our concerns in a more, I guess, authoritative way, where we would actually be a little bit more listened to instead of just adding a little bit more credence to whatever things are going on. Snow removal is definitely an issue here in the city, and I'm sure everyone has different opinions on how it could be done better and more efficiently. As the Bike Ped Task Force, though, how do we further influence that and implement better policies for snow removal, snow clearance? But then, I mean, we are a city that has 4 seasons. And yeah, maybe 3 of them feel like we have snow all the time, but we do have other concerns as well. And I would argue that we need more influential power, and taking something like what Montavious was suggesting, partnering with the LRB, would help us become possibly more influential with the support of certain alders.
There's an alternative possibly that these could work parallel to each other. Some initiative to continue the work with legislative resource, there's a research bureau. We initiated that, and so we should re-stimulate that effort possibly, and also potentially start working parallel with a subcommittee to address solutions for the snow and ice removal.
When I addressed an initiative I'm working at, I meant that in conjunction with this task force as part of it, not something separately. But there are a lot of different ideas going out there, and that maybe collectively, like Carissa said, we all work together and know what everyone's doing, that we have a unified voice, even if it's different community members, that we're aware of them and what they're doing, but that we are aware of what is going on and how we can all work together in a unified voice. And Terry Burnt, I had invited her, she had to leave at 10 o'clock. So she's been working on, like she had mentioned about adopting curb cuts, or corners. Is that something that can be done throughout the city? And that's something maybe that the task force can do. And Alderwoman Lewis just had sent out an e-notify about a pilot program for snow removal, shoveling snow, that we understand what that entails, and that we're aware of that, and can that be implemented in other parts of the city. From what I understand, that is coming with funds from the Bader Philanthropies. Are there other corporations out there that can help support something similar in other communities? And that could be part of the work under the task force.
Montavious, you had your hand raised.
Yes, I'm loving what Becky is saying right now. I think what the task force could look like is kind of a development shop. So you say a development shop because I work as a developer, so that's kind of how I think of things. But I work on 2 projects all year, maybe 3, and that's what I dedicate all my time to, from inception of an idea of a project all the way through construction. So maybe that's how the task force can be formatted. So we take this meeting or probably next meeting or a couple meetings to identify the projects that we are going to work, or you guys are going to work on, not on task force, you guys are going to work on for the year. And those could be the committees that people serve on, not just task force members, but other volunteers in the community. So you got one thing that keeps coming up is snow removal. Pedestrian snow removal. That's a subcommittee for the year, next 2 years, however long. There's the task force for the 30th Street commercial corridor, the trail network. That's the committee, and maybe 2 or 3 other ones. Because a lot of times I've been in these meetings before, we come up with new things to work on every meeting. Like every meeting, there's a new issue out in the world that somebody brings to the task force, and that can get unwieldy very quickly, and before you know it, you haven't done any goals or you haven't accomplished any goals because they're just bringing more and more issues to the table. So that's what I think might be able to work. So then when you have those committees, they become like their own development shops. So they have to do the research around best practices for snow removal. So you're looking at other cities working with the LRB. You start crafting some policy with them. You find an alderman who's sympathetic to your cause. Then you start pushing that through the Common Council. So you go from inception all the way through completion or implementation. And I think that would focus the committee's efforts, and people won't have to worry about so many different things. If you're on the snow task force, you and your committee, you report back to the task force, however often you guys have the meetings, every other month, I think it is, and give updates, and you get feedback from the larger group. Then you take that feedback and you go on and continue pushing your thing through. I think that might be a way that task force could work.
Thanks for that. It's basically, in a nutshell, quality over quantity here. So I'm not sharing my screen. Am I accidentally hit something? Okay, good.
No, you're good.
James, did you want to add something? I saw you kind of leaning in to speak. Were you going to say something, or maybe?
No, just quickly, I guess I could say, like, these are all really great points, and I think as the staff assistant, I'm very happy to hear these conversations and more than willing to kind of like help kind of focus your efforts as much as I can. I did just kind of have an observation that especially for anyone who maybe hasn't been to meetings for a while, or even this might be their first meeting, that I think historically the task force kind of developed into more of a sounding board, kind of regularly hearing updates, particularly from DPW, for the better part of a decade or more, and kind of just became like this clearinghouse, right, that just heard about things. And so we were kind of in these growing pains of trying to encourage it to become a little bit more of an advisory body, right, like actually taking on issues and advising the city and departments and elected officials on what you would like to see acted upon, or what you would like to see addressed. So this is really encouraging to hear. I think with that kind of in mind, I think when you're thinking of these goals, which are all really awesome, and I think you should definitely, take the flag and lead on them. Just keep remembering that you don't necessarily have to start from scratch either. We have these subcommittees that are kind of those development shops, at least as they are now. So if you feel that any of those are still appropriate, like, move a lot of these conversations to those, or if you feel like they're not working, you can certainly set those up even today if those are like part of the 2021 goals or whatever however you want to move on them. And then also like recognize that there have been, draft letters around sidewalk snow removal that have been drafted and could be, picked back up or revised. There are, you as an advisory body, you can respond to different resolutions and announcements that you see from Common Council as well. Like, certainly don't want to be too reactionary, but like you certainly don't have to take on the whole lion's share of the work as well. Like, definitely capitalizing on some of the efforts that have already are underway or have been started. So that's just kind of maybe what I was leaning in for. There are some things in the chat, but Caressa, if you want to, if there's anything you want to kind of keep moving before we jump to those.
Perhaps if you could help articulate some of these things in the chat, James, for us.
Yeah, sure thing. If that's as long as you're okay with the timing. I think the last thing that, in addition to the 2021 goals, was just like setting the schedule. So that should be a pretty quick one, I would imagine.
Okay.
So there was some discussion of just like what the snow sidewalk clearing kind of policies are. I think just in the interest of time, I'll just refer people to know that, Mitchell brought up that there is or that he believes that there's an ordinance. Jake clarified a little bit and pointed out the unequal burden on low-income residents that current policy has. And then Brian brought up that the main problem that they see around plowing and snow removal is at corners that are just beyond the curb, being an accessibility issue. And then now moving to a couple questions here. So Jake asked, can we get clarity on that? Who is responsible, city or residents, for past the curb corner issues? Maybe it's an education thing to PSA about. Mitchell said 100% similar to cars parking in bike lanes. If the snow doesn't leave enough room in the parking lane, the law exists to make sure that infrastructure is well maintained. For bike peds, there just isn't enough adherence. Those are all great. I think we should discuss, or I can talk with Caressa and Kevin, particularly after the meeting, and see for the next agenda items whether you want anyone from operations to kind of tackle those, or if you want like a written response to some of those questions. We can certainly coordinate that. And then Angie asked, James, can you please share the names of the subcommittees at present? Thanks. There were 3, and with 2 that were active. So there's a policy and projects subcommittee, which was discussing opportunities both on like current projects that were already underway or grant opportunities, and kind of a pretty loose interpretation of projects. So even just like efforts and initiatives that various both city departments and community groups were working on. And then there's the bylaws and ordinance subcommittee, which was specifically working on that question we mentioned at the beginning and a couple times throughout, of just the enabling legislation and kind of what the mission and vision and objectives are for the task force going forward. And then there was a communications kind of community engagement subcommittee that never really got off the ground, but it was meant to be more like kind of a platform for more community engagement, probably around various campaigns and projects. So, and then Becky had her hand raised.
I'm just going to be real quick here. So last year, what we did do is a PSA where we had all of the network stations provided PSA where Jeff Polinsky spoke about snow removal, but we also had an individual from Vision Forward, who is a gentleman that is blind, talking about snow removal at curb cuts and how it hinders persons with that are blind, low vision, or mobility disabilities, but as well as mothers with strollers. And then we also provided a trifold brochure on snow removal, what the city ordinance are required, and we distribute that to like the downtown beds as far as their responsibilities, businesses' responsibility for snow removal. So we did get that out last year. It hasn't happened this year. We need to do that for this year.
Well, this topic, we're sliding into this topic heavily, and I think that it's clearly of great value. Just quickly, I want, before we get into that, we can get into that, because I think I was going through it on the agenda anyway. One of the things, when Montavious was talking about, just pick some things you want to work on and just focus on them. I will say that one of those things, hands down, will be the reorg of this group, 100%. Okay, that's like when we meet, how often we meet, the membership, all that good stuff. That's going to be a big one this year. I know that we'll have the time to do it. Plus, we have some technical resources available for us to do that. And I'm really excited to work with somebody sort of like outside of the community, that sort of expert from 200 miles away, to help us do that. So that is my commitment. And Kevin, I hope that you can second that commitment to everyone here on the committee, and also who's in the virtual room, who's visiting with us, because I know many of you who are just visiting with us. I know you have your questions and comments about this group. So that is our commitment for certain. So I won't, get into the nitty-gritty details about that anymore and bore you. So are we perhaps okay with me sharing some information with you all about ice and snow removal from Pierce City, if that's okay? Does anybody have anything that they want to contribute? And by the way, all the comments on snow and ice removal are really helpful. And Rebecca, I always value your opinion on all these things, because obviously all ages, abilities, facilities are incredibly important. And whether you're 8 or you're 80, or you are in need of an assisted device or whatever, that is 100% the most important thing, because everybody else can function in the middle, right? So are we cool with that? Can I share something with you all?
I'm cool with that. And I'd like to echo your sentiment as well. Like, I think I'm excited to see the reimagination of the Bike Ped Task Force. And I also think that it's very clear that ice and snow removal is a big issue for us.
And let's be real with each other. I'm gonna be honest, and I'm sure you all know this. Ice and snow removal is like the crux of most major metropolitan cities in the country, and it's a problem that is echoed even in the spring and summer months when we have other issues. I've put this issue out to Bike Listserv this week just to ask people what they're doing in other cities, and I'm going to share something with you, and maybe you can we can do some feedback session about it. But we are not unique. I feel like the only people who are potentially doing this right is like Montreal. They have like a whole fleet of people that come in seasonally to just take snow away, and it's like insane. So maybe I can just share my screen really quick. So the other earlier in the week, let me know if you just somebody verbally say, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so earlier in the week, I'm sure all of you saw a lot of hubbub about ice and snow removal. I think it's been even more of a growing challenge besides, the run-of-the-mill challenges, especially with climate change and how we're getting a lot of snow and then snow is melting rapidly. It's a challenge that a lot of cities are going to face and are currently facing. But my colleague in the city of Baltimore, Jed Weeks, who is he's like a policy wonk there. He just wanted to share this with me about what his organization at Bike More, which is kind of like their Wisconsin Bike Fed Bike Walk Advocacy Organization. What they did in September to advocate for not only more winter activities, obviously during COVID-19, but also just like present to the city some of the strategies around ice and snow removal and activities. So, you know, we had active streets in the summer, but they're also concerned about what people are doing in the winter to stay active. And I can share this with all of you, but I'm not going to read through the entire thing. But I just wanted to say that this is something that potentially that this task force could do in terms of creating a presentation, a robust presentation, not only on strategies for snow removal, but activating our parks and play spaces, keeping businesses alive, supporting safe community building. And, you know, this was all posted on their blog, but you could see some of their ideas in terms of ice and reprioritizing ice and snow removal. Instead of beginning snow clearance on gateway routes, full-size plows which prioritize bus lanes, curb lanes on our most frequent transit routes. You can go down the rest of it. The city should pilot residential sidewalk snow clearing. So we had somebody on here who's you know, interested in starting growing this Milwaukee Snow Angels program. So that's really good. But also just activating our parks and play spaces, even in the wintertime. Let's face it, folks, like, even though you may not love winter, we live in a cold weather climate, and cold weather can actually be enjoyable if we can work with our local government to support more outdoor activities. And I do, you know, shout out to county parks. They have some great parks for cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. And sometimes it's just about like elevating the message and reminding people that, you know, these things are available, and partnering with one another to, you know, make these activities exciting. So this particular project was inspired by this organization headed by Guillermo Penalosa. Some of you know who that individual is. It's a huge active transportation and land use advocate from South America. I think his brother was the mayor of Bogota at one time, and they were really big at starting bus rapid transit. But check out his TED Talk. Sometimes they're really amazing. But they put out this program, this grant program called Winter Mission, which is hopefully they do it again. But this was really focused on trying to increase engagement during the winter. You can see actually the city of Eau Claire was awarded that grant, and they actually did a full, you can read their reports, and in the reports they're not only asking people about their level of activity during the winter, but they're also asking them about their perceptions of how well their public spaces are maintained. So I actually hope that they do this again, but that does, just because they do this program doesn't mean that we can't emulate programs like this. But I just wanted to scroll really down really quickly because I was reading this earlier, and you know, they're asking questions about their current relationships with winter and why winter is challenging to get around in, and what their perceptions are, attitude towards winter and their issues. And the big issue here is in Eau Claire, like I said, everybody has this issue, is better snow management. So you're welcome to go there, but also you know, again, you know, harsh winter weather conditions with poor snow maintenance management is a big one. People feeling like the accessibility of sidewalks in the winter, very poor to poor, that's over half of this. So I just wanted to share that with you all, because you know, this task force can work on snow and ice removal issues and public health issues, especially in winter, in a similar fashion if you're interested. So if you think it's a good direction to be, you know, to put out information like that to the public, and also we can present to bodies like the Public Health and Safety Committee, as well as the Public Works Committee, on a strategy for, you know, increasing health and safety in the public right of way during the winter time. So that's what I wanted to share with you all. Yeah.
So I raised my own hand, I'll call on myself, taking off my staffer hat for a second and putting on my multimodal unit hat. Kate Reardon brought up, so we have this like weekly knowledge share where we're kind of sharing different like best practices and kind of cool things that we find in the field. And she brought up a few weeks ago an example of like essentially winter-friendly city work that's happening in Edmonton, Canada. And we had a follow-up conversation, I think a week later, where we brought up the 880 cities example and brainstormed other ideas of how we could make Milwaukee more of a winter-friendly city. So I know our unit would be very interested in working with the task force on moving this topic forward. And there are a couple other webinars that the Bar Foundation hosted that included the 880 cities kind of work. So I can share that with the after the meeting and with the meeting notes.
Sounds good. Does anyone have any questions about, you know, the direction that this particular group could go in terms of advocating for this issue? Because right now it's not bad what we're doing. I think that it's just, you know, what Kevin's talking about is, I think you mentioned before, is there's a lot of, maybe James, is there's like a lot of inventory of communications coming from this group that maybe get sent to the mayor's office. They might fall flat. But there's other committees who, you know, are in charge of a lot of, that should be actually coordinating with one another more frequently, like Public Works and Public Safety and Health, that could be hearing these things and be champions. So, you know, we could put together a more robust presentation for these groups and anyone else that's willing to hear us and raise a profile of this issue.
I really like that idea, particularly because presenting in front of Public Works or the other committees themselves, I think can really be a step towards becoming more visible as a group and also just more influential the more that we're presenting these topics. And I mean, we're a task force that really, obviously we have people from the public that do attend these meetings, and we can end up being a voice as we explore different options that other cities are doing. And I think when we do explore different options that other cities are doing, especially when we present them in front of alders, it can give us a sort of competitive, we need to be doing that as well. And it will make us more relevant, and it can be a really positive way of changing things here in the city long term.
So you have about 12 minutes left if you want to hit the 11 o'clock mark. Does anyone, I should have been taking better notes, but I think I was relying on the recording a little bit. Does anyone want to take a stab at recapping some of the goals that you've been hearing? Obviously, sidewalk snow removal in particular is a big one. Kind of reorganizing or kind of revamping the task force is another. Are there others that were discussed that that you want to sort of tackle in 2021? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a discrete like infrastructure thing, but even just like a concept that you wanted to tackle in 2021.
Well, something I think Becky kind of touched on, and I kind of touched on as well, is and it kind of goes back to our subcommittees, honestly, but we're kind of an intermediate for the public. And I remember in a presentation, I think maybe last year to the Bike Ped Task, or 2 years ago to the Bike Ped Task Force, that was kind of seen as one of the benefits of the Bike Ped Task Force is our ability to be kind of a voice for the community. So if I realize that subcommittee is somewhat defunct, but maybe that could also be it. Like we're not really reinventing anything here.
Well, we'll definitely have an opportunity to kind of revisit the goals when we approve minutes next meeting too. So, I'll do my best to kind of capture whatever thing was said that kind of constitutes a goal, and make sure that it's clear then in the next meeting, where you want to focus your efforts. And, we can always adjust as the year goes on too. So I just want to make sure that, right out of the gate that you're invigorated and motivated to tackle the things that were discussed today. And yeah, I don't want to do too much talking here, but Caressa, Kevin, with the remaining 10 minutes, what would you like? I know schedule was one of the items as well.
Well, are you talking about scheduling all the dates for the next meetings? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but I guess, we don't have to be too, I guess the default is just to resume the same schedule, which was the first Friday of every other month starting in February. So the next one would be April, or I should look at the actual date, but we certainly, I think it's worth revisiting whether that is the most convenient time, and we could certainly follow up with like a poll or something to members and common attendees to see if there are better times. But there are other even formats that we could do too, because I'm sure we'll be doing virtual for at least the near future. And I know there are other committees at the city that do things like listening sessions and things like that. So,
well, I don't know if this is my place, but I guess I don't know if it's a motion or anything. Let's talk about what it's like to be a person offline, but I would discuss the offline celebrate this meeting schedule, because I'm particularly, this does happen at 9 o'clock and in the morning on a weekday, and unfortunately a lot of people to attend, and I know that there will be that, but I kind of would like to put that on people and not decide right away. That's my feeling right now. Okay. If we can jump into it, I opportunities, events coming up, anything like that. Can we go into that? Anyone here on this call would like to share anything about what's coming up, and with the rest of us? Well, I can share something with you all. So I'm going to put this link in the chat. We can put that in the notes too. So the national nonprofit America Walks is hosting another cohort of Walking College students. And Walking College is essentially, kind of a boot camp for anyone of any age, ability. Well, I shouldn't say any age. I haven't checked whether, maybe if you're a minor, you might not be able to participate, but we can look into that. But anyway, so this is for individuals who want to increase pedestrian in a community. It could be a resident advocate, it could be a community organizer, it could be a faith leader, anyone who really wants to improve walkability in their neighborhood and might need to increase. And America Walks offers experts in the field to help that individual come up with neighborhood plans, enrich their understanding of how the built environment functions for pedestrians. And that application is February 28th. And right now I am committing as also Milwaukee Walks co-coordinator. We will pay for the fee if an individual from Milwaukee is chosen as a part of the cohort. I think they only choose like one per place. So we have a full schedule coming up of pedestrian safety advocacy. I'm excited to be working with Dominic Anoye from Jane's Walk and trying to pair up with Jane's Walk, with the Jane's Walk group. And so I think it'll be an exciting collaboration. So I hope somebody would get selected from Milwaukee. Many of you have received my email yesterday. Again, you can sign up there till February 28th, and we can work together and we'll waive your fee. So there's no reason why you shouldn't. Get on it. Montavia says, can you share the calendar of events you just mentioned? Montavious, could you be more clear about that? The link that I sent. Go ahead.
Yeah, you just said you guys have a number of events coming up for, I think it was what, Milwaukee Walks or something.
Yeah, I will share. I do have one save the date prepared that I'm just about to send out. I'm getting it ready in March, so look out for that. It's not quite ready yet. I can share it with James, and he can share it out to anyone who's come to the meeting. But that will be an intro to Milwaukee Walks and why be a pedestrian advocate. It's kind of like Milwaukee Walks Walk College, but as possible. If you want to put it out there, like, I'm sorry, Montavious, I don't have my deliverables finished. However, the first meeting for Milwaukee Walks is actually 2 meetings because we want to give opportunity to come and meet, and that is going to be March 11th at 7 p.m. This is Saturday, and that's going to be 11 to 12, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. So I'm sorry I don't have that ready for you, but if you can remember March 11th, 6 to 7, or March 13th, 11 to 12 p.m. And we're calling it the Pedestrian Power Hour.
I'm sorry, the last date, the April date, and where is it? Is it online?
March, they're both March dates, and I have
Oh.
verbal, so I can send that out, but I'm just saying it right now. Or March 13th, so maybe just strike it in your calendar if it interests you. March 11th is a weekday, it's a Wednesday, I believe, and that's going to be from 6 to 7. March 13th, which is that weekend, is a Saturday, and that's going to be from 11 to 12. So they're going to be Zoom events, a virtual pedestrian power hour. Okay.
And we can do our best to summarize that in after the meeting too. I'll try not to let the notes linger too long, and hopefully in the next week or so.
Okay. Anything else that anyone wants to say?
Yes, I'd like to say thank you to the task force members and all the people who participate in this call, you know, on all the time. I think it's high time that we have more and more advocates for the type of things we're talking about. And a lot of times it's we're advocating for people who would never come to these meetings, who really do have, you know, issues with snow removal and who really do want better access to healthy and safe streets, but just would never come to this meeting. So we're not just working for ourselves. We all want this stuff and we love it, but we're also working for, well, I should stop saying we, I'm not doing anything. You guys are working hard to advocate for those people who, you know, don't have a voice. So thank you. Good job.
Thanks for coming, Montavious. I'm watching you. I see you. You are doing a lot.
I'll just say too, thank you so much everyone for bearing with the sort of technical issues here. I know Teams isn't always the most friendly platform, and I'll admit I was a little rusty on getting some of the things set up at the beginning. So definitely appreciate everyone's patience here, and hopefully the next one will be a little more streamlined since we're back in it. 2021, it's gonna be better.
Do we have to make a motion to end if there's nothing else?
Yes, sir.
Well, I make a motion to end. Who
I'll
will
second.
it? Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.